Welcome to SchezzWho, Hampton Roads top spot for politics. And big thanks to those who get this channel going, including my wife, Andrea Dixon, who founded the channel herself. She's doing great things literally right now in Richmond with workforce development. So shout out to her. Also, shout out to my good friend, Miss Ellen, who owns Ellen's Homestyle and Barbecue Express with a location in Virginia Beach and in Portsmouth, and good friend Mr. Seiko Varner with Positive Vibes Incorporated. He also founded the Hampton Roads Green Book, which is an application to help find Black brown-owned businesses in Hampton Roads, and helped win him Entrepreneur of the Year in Hampton Roads by Black Brand. So shout out to Mr. Seiko. Also, Mr. Farley Perkins, who with the Farley Perkins Agency can help you with your insurance needs. Just hit up 757-271-6655. And lastly, ELG Sweet Boutique, which is a great sweet confection-based place, great for shakes too, in High Street in Portsmouth. All right, to make this Hampton Roads top spot for politics statement really bear fruit, I'm working to expand my efforts after this past election day. More videos, more content, more locations. So I'm going to need your views, your likes, your comments, and importantly, I need your subscriptions to really make this channel pop. So go ahead and like and subscribe. And then I'm taking SchezzWho out to the Show Me State, Webster Groves, Missouri, in fact, just outside of St. Louis, where Chloe Telle is an educator in that, should I say, suburban area outside of
Yeah,
St.
it's a suburban area. Yeah, it's considered suburban.
And while studying for this interview, I looked at the election map and it got really, 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 really blue right there around St. Louis, and then immediately fades to red
It does.
right there in Missouri. So how are you doing at this hour in Missouri?
Hey, I'm doing just fine. Um, you know, what made this election interesting is when I hear people saying they followed the policies. And I'm going to keep this as neutral as possible, but I would argue that were the policies followed? Were they really followed? So much misinformation. As a teacher, I'm big on information. And the misinformation machine in this country that's being helped by the media, the mainstream media, is just out of this world. And, I never thought I'd get to the point where I would say it's not so much that elections are rigged through the voting machines, they're rigged through the information. So,
Interesting way to put it.
mhm,
And I also know that you have a good educational background. You're a teacher
yes.
yourself. How do you take that and sort of merge it with political consciousness?
Well, what I do is for my students, I challenge them to question everything, to research everything. When they encounter when they encounter any sort of question or anything, I tell them, I said, okay, I always challenge them to be honest about the knowledge that they bring to the table, what they think they know. And then I want them to research so that they can explore all the different sides that are out there. And then to cause them to say, did I learn something new? How does this challenge what I already brought to the table? The biggest thing is now critical thinking. That's what I teach them. Some people have called it indoctrination. I call it critical thinking.
Yeah. And it's rather cherished because we would like to think that maybe education isn't as good as we thought it was back in decades hence. And if we have educators like yourself who are actually just making them work the
Just
mind,
work it.
then it should pay off in the long run.
Yeah.
But regarding the part of political consciousness, I am curious if you could put down your own political ideology without referencing like big names like Biden or Harris or
No
Trump,
problem.
who would you be?
I'm the type of person where I try to figure out who could be left behind by my vote. That's my political ideology. Who could be left behind? I vote not only just for me, I vote for those who I consider vulnerable. I vote for the poor. I vote for those immigrants. I vote for women who might need a way. I vote for educators. I vote for people. I vote for humanity. That's who I vote for. So when I see a bunch of policies that are meant to hurt or to marginalize people, I go the other way. It's that simple for me. And it doesn't, and thank you for saying that. See, for me, it's not about DNR. It's not about DNR. It's not about the libertarian. It's not about any of these people.
Mhm.
Show me a candidate. Show me a candidate that works on behalf of the vulnerable. Show me a candidate that is going to try to do the least amount of harm with their policies. Show me a candidate that has serious solutions, because what's happening is we're being infiltrated by people who's using all the language of dealing with vulnerable folks.
Mhm.
But when it comes time for action, if you follow my TikTok educational news outlet, my number one thing is do not be information rich but strategy poor. I have too many people who said they did a protest vote, and
Mhm.
now the things are getting serious. They have no strategy. That's not good.
Yeah, they need to think beyond election day.
Yeah,
Politics isn't just one day a year. It's the entire year, showing up from city councils to state government to federal government.
that's it.
No.
That's it. It is about librarians. It is about how our money is being budgeted at the local level. What are our school boards doing, especially our school boards right now?
Mhm.
What is going on? Who are our judges? What sort of laws are they passing? And I'm gonna just tell you something. The thing that has frustrated me the most with activists in the past couple of weeks, they talk loudly but have no strategy.
I'm going
And
to save that for a question later on.
that
Yeah. I have a significant amount of people in my life, mainly family, who bring a Christian influence to their reported worldview. However, I'm seeing a tremendous generational gap between, say,
Mhm.
previous generations who wear their Christianity on their sleeve and their political worldview on their sleeve, too, compared with my generation and my cousins and brothers and other Christian peers of younger age. Do you see this split?
Oh yeah, and it's going to only deepen now that the church has been weaponized. And let's just put it on the table. The church has been weaponized by our politicians, and that's so unfortunate, because the church is the place where the vulnerable should be able to count on the church. Poor people should be able to count on the church. People who want healing should be able to count on the church. When I find out my church is running like a political action committee, the integrity's gone. And that's what saddened me, is that this political atmosphere has caused a divide, not just politically, but faith-wise.
Mhm.
And that's no good, because if you read in your Bibles, well, and let me say this, I don't want to assume everybody's Christian, so,
Noted.
but I will say this, those of you who practice the faith know God is not a God of division. So when you have people who are dividing up the body of Christ, that is your first sign that you're not dealing with somebody who understands the faith. Hmm.
Now, in the past week or so, have been saving some interesting memes that I've seen on Facebook that I think might be relevant to this specific conversation that you and I
All
are having. So I want to put them on the screen just so you can give me your reaction. The first one is from Reverend Benjamin Kramer. Then Jesus said unto the sick, you better have insurance.
Right.
Then Jesus said unto the stranger, are you here legally? Then Jesus said unto the hungry, my taxes better not be paying for those loaves and fishes. And then Jesus said unto the poor, this is your own fault.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also have beware of any Christian movement that acts as though the world is full of enemies to be
Yeah.
destroyed rather than full of neighbors to be loved. Beware of any Christian movement that demands the government be an instrument of God's wrath, but never a source of God's mercy, generosity, or compassion. And then this one I think is only relevant in so much as the political aspect. This is actually from the he's about to be named the Senate Majority Leader in the United States Senate, Senator John Thune, who in October 8th of 2016,
My Lord.
in the Access Hollywood tape drop, said that Trump should back out immediately and Mike Pence should be in, which brings us back to, are Christian politicians being led by Christian belief, or is political opinions leading the use of Christianity in politics?
Here's the thing. Being a Christian is part of your identity like anything else. So for anyone to pretend like their beliefs will not bleed off into their politics, that's not true. But the question is, how does it bleed into your politics? Listen, I love Dr. Tony Evans, and I don't know if any of you have ever listened to him. He says, you're a Christian first. You can be a diet Republican, diet Democrat, diet whatever, but you're to be a Christian first. How do you exercise your worldview? How is it? And I'm going to ask you this, friend. How is it that Jesus never needed a single legislative pen, but he changed the world? More so, arguably, than the folks right now who are sitting in the churches. He healed the sick. He did all this without the legislative pen. So why is it now today Christians feel that the only way for their voices to be heard is to pretend like they're prisoner to one or the other? The worst thing that has ever happened to the church is when they decide to be a political action committee. Now, is that to say I say Christians shouldn't vote? No. I never say that. And is that to say Christians should not speak out on issues? I don't say that. And I'm going to give you an example. You know, racism is a big issue for me. Racism is a huge issue for me. Racism is a spiritual issue if you're a believer. So you are to speak out on the evils of that. For Christians, abortion should not be a political issue. It should be a spiritual issue. What got us here? Okay? Somewhere along the line, the church decided that it was more powerful to stand behind Caesar than Jesus himself. And it's costing us our witness. It's costing us our witness. I am literally going to be afraid to see the trends for the church in the next couple of years because of the way so many people have been wounded. You don't know how many people, when we had those culture wars with the school boards, you don't know how many teachers I spoke to who were told by their pastors if they belonged to the NEA, they were going to hell or they had to leave. Nowhere is that in the word. Nowhere is that in the word. That is your political view and that is your opinion. Now, you might want to say something like, I don't like this issue and speak on it. And when you speak on the issues of the spiritual matter, because we are filled with the Holy Spirit, and by the way, I'm preaching Christianity right now, because we believe we're filled with the Holy Spirit, then your vote will be guided. But all of this that we've done, I just can't get behind it. I can't get behind it.
In many ways, I would second that. And that is not just saying like it had to be a state thing. We are many states apart, which brings me back to the election from the concept of Missouri being the show us state. They have many things that were on the ballot as well, like sports wagering, which was legalized, the right to reproductive freedom, including abortion, enshrined 52-48. Yeah. Prohibition of ranked choice voting. Somehow they decided not to allow ranked choice voting. And then requiring employers to pay a minimum wage of $15 and up, plus earned paid sick leave. That won 58-42. But then you get Mr. Josh Hawley, the guy who was running the Capitol on January 6th after doing a fist bump and stirring up that crowd, won nearly 56% of the vote, and Trump won 58% of the vote. So what might your reactions be to those little reactions?
And bring it back to local. two of the judges. So we had a man named Marcellus Williams, where my video basically went viral on TikTok, who was sentenced to death, and he is dead now, who literally had evidence exonerating him from the crime that he was accused of. And our attorney general did all he could do to make sure that was blocked. And then our governor turned around, didn't do his due diligence to make sure that this man was able to exercise due process in a way, in a way that could maybe ensure justice. So people went out and put these two judges that not only tried to overturn the abortion ban that you just talked about back in, but the same people who turned around and helped murder Marcellus Williams. So that means for a lot of people, they are not seeing the connection between what they do locally to federal. The connection's not there. You just said it in the data. Mm-hmm. Because how can I turn around and say I'm for this, but then vote in everybody who was against that? How can you say, I was reading comments this morning where people were crying about the lead poisoning in Missouri, but yet you just voted in a whole senator who has done anti-union votes. He has done anti-environmental votes. I mean, there's a disconnect here. There is a disconnect between what goes on locally and what's going on federally. And I just don't think enough people did their due diligence.
I would easily believe that. And I wonder if that is as much to do with the people who probably only show interest. Oh man, it's election day, I'm going to go out to vote. And that's when they turn on the mind to go vote, and they weren't thinking about politics throughout the whole year. Or how much of it could be just bad campaigning. Do you have any ideas as to why Kamala Harris's campaign didn't really generate a big swell of support compared to like Biden in 2020?
Racism and sexism. I'm not going to sugarcoat it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This woman came with a more impressive resume than I would argue Biden and Trump put together. Let me ask you a question. Why is it that she was criticized on certain things and her opponent was not? There was flip-flopping on both sides. One's flip-flopping got highlighted more than the others. Mm-hmm. Okay, there were issues of sexual immorality. Really? Racism and sexism did this. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Sum of Us. Let me make sure I'm giving you the proper title. Hold on. I always want to look. The Sum of Us. Yes. What Racism Cost Everybody by Heather McGhee. I would highly suggest you all read that, because what you will see in the next couple of years will be the result of people allowing their biases to hurt them. There was a part in the book where they were integrating public swimming pools. Okay. Mm-hmm. And the white residents didn't want integration. And so what they did was they poured cement in the swimming pool so that Black kids couldn't use them. Well, when you pour cement in the swimming pools, Black kids couldn't use them. But let me ask you $1 million question. Who else couldn't use them?
The white kids as well.
Their own kids. Mm-hmm. Baby, that's what you're about to see for the next 4 years. The cemented cement.
Off more than the nose, despite the face. That's taking some cheek. It's taking some forehead with it.
Yeah. The cemented swimming pools is what you're about to see for the next 4 years. Oh, they're celebrating right now. But it's not what people think it is. When people talk about things like the Department of Education, any country that is achieving academically, mm-hmm. any country has a centralized education department.
And they're the ones that are ahead of us now.
And apparently will continue to be ahead of us. So I want us to look back on this and recognize we did this to ourselves. We did this to ourselves. Mm-hmm. And I can't be upset about it, because It's not like all the candidates weren't honest about who they were. We've been down this road before. We chose this road.
And now I'm curious about the roads going forward and a little bit of bringing it to some memes again. I noticed a funny one that you shared, I think today or yesterday, of eating yogurt on the day of the next Women's March, which to me is an example of the performative but ineffective politics from 46% of white women who voted for Harris. And I doubt the 53% of white women who wear red hats are even going to be there. And I'm getting the sense, because I'm a friend of many of them on Facebook, you're like, you know what, I'm going to find other things to do on that day.
Mm-hmm. Because here's the thing. Why all the protests? We just had an election. Let me tell you something. So one of my friends who lives in one of the Carolinas, he was talking about how at the state level, the folks who supported Harris swept it at the state level, but it went red for president. And when you go into that state, people are making these weird comments such as she's not black like us. She's this. Oh, we don't understand her policies, despite the fact that every interview she went on, she articulated policy. Just a complete dissonance, cognitive dissonance. So all these folks who've done all this, the 92% did the hard work on Tuesday and other days. We have nothing left to do. There's nothing left to do. See, when I talk about lack of strategy, let's remove Trump and Harris from this, right? So when I fight for anything or when I advocate for things, I always make sure that any policy I do, whether it's a Democrat or Republican in office, that there is a way forward. Okay? I make sure that there is a way forward. Too many of these people went out. They punished her. What's their way forward? What's their way forward? Women, hey, right now you've put yourself in the position where a lot of the stuff that was just fought for women, that can be challenged. And where can they go? Where can they go? Can't go to the Supreme Court. Can't go to Washington. Where are you gonna go with your policies? All these people hollered about genocide. Oh, I'm getting yeah. All these folks who hollered about genocide. Where can you go? How did you ensure that you were going to have a captive audience if you managed to get your voices heard from point A to point B? How did you ensure that? Mm-hmm. There's too many people who had good political ideas and zero strategy. And hey, here's the thing. Harris deserves criticism. Oh, no, nobody's above criticism. Nobody. But my question is, when I talk to all these groups, I'm not hearing a strategy. I'm only hearing moral high grounds. Well, moral high grounds don't save Palestinian children. Moral high grounds don't secure women's rights. Moral high grounds do not save education. Moral high grounds only give you a moral high ground in your household. Heck, remember how I just said early on, I said, ooh, I'm Christian, but everybody who's listening to this might not necessarily be Christian.
Indeed.
See, my moral high ground isn't going to look like your moral high ground, is it? Mm-hmm. So my high ground might not mean anything to you. See how that works when you preach for moral high grounds? Mm-hmm.
Indeed. Mm-hmm. This also has me curious. Where do you think we go from here? And more importantly, looking at demographic turnout, where should the Republican and Democrat Party, both of them, go from here?
Well, Democrats need to look at their own internal biases while they're talking about Republicans. They need to figure out why they couldn't bring themselves to support a qualified Black woman. Why many of them felt the need to stay home. Because people can talk about Republicans all day. But partial loss was due to the failure to turn out for your own person. I'm not going to sit here and play with folks. I've said this on countless videos. You can turn out for your own person. Where Republicans go, I don't, I'm going to tell you something. There is no Republican Party. There's a MAGA party. There is no Republican Party. I don't know. I don't have a strategy for them. I have a strategy for Republicans. I don't have a strategy for MAGA.
Hmm.
Because Republicans need to return to being the party of Lincoln. Democrats need to look very close. And when Democrats use terms such as the party of the working class, I find it strange that you bolstered how much percentage of the Black vote and you pretended like you didn't attract working class people. Black people are working class people. So again, you need to address your own biases before you start preaching to the Republican Party. Perhaps that's why a lot of this diversity and all got dismantled, because you speak the same racism.
I hear that.
Uh-huh.
Mhm. Well, I believe that's all I have right now in terms of my questions about how you feel about the election, your thoughts on it. And I do want to thank you. I know this is during your break, Ms. Chloe Telle, for coming on and sharing your thoughts. Any cool things of yours we should follow? You did mention a TikTok earlier.
Yes, educational news outlet. What I focus on where do we go from here with our children? Because when you talk about people who are too ignorant to understand the purpose of the Department of Education, it's not good. It's not good at all. How do we make sure that we do not further exacerbate inequities? That's what we need to be looking at.
Indeed. Again, thank you so much for coming on, Ms. Chloe Telle. I hope you have a great Friday and an excellent weekend.
All right. Thank you. All
Okay.
right.
And SchezzWho viewers, don't forget, like the video, subscribe to the channel, come back for the next one in this series of catching up on the reactions to election 2024. Catch you next time.